Hi everyone. So welcome today to the Women and Non-Binary Students workshop, where we're going to talk a bit about elections and representation of women and non-binary students in leadership roles. So I'm Laura, I'm the Democracy and Campaigns Development Coordinator, and I'm the project lead for elections. And we also have with us today Nick Glover, who's our Student Voice Manager.
Hello.
And Effy Hayle, who is our Community and Wellbeing Officer from the past 2 previous years.
Yeah.
And Maddi Cannell, who is our current York Sport President and also was President last year.
Hello.
Fab. So today we're just going to go through the roles that are available to you, what the elections involve, the kind of skills you can gain as officers, or other student representation, and a chance to ask questions and hear from Effy and Maddi as women in those roles. So why are we doing this session? We're doing this because YUSU is committed to diversity of candidates and voters. Women and non-binary students are often underrepresented in officer roles, specifically over the last few years. And we want to proactively encourage women and non-binary students to come into those roles, because a more diverse YUSU is a better YUSU, and we want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable putting themselves forward. So what are the elections all about? First off, elections altogether are about nominations, campaigning and voting, and they're the 3 stages. So students nominate themselves to run in the election for a specific position. They then campaign to students to gain their votes, and the whole student body then puts in their decision through online voting as to who they want to be their representative. So by the end of it, you have a team of students who are representative of the whole student body. So the roles that you can go for in this current election there's 20 of them, so there's a lot of choice. First off, we have the sabbatical roles, and these are full-time roles held by either graduated students, or you take a year out of your course to take up a full-time contract for a year where you'll be paid as a staff member. So these are union president, academic officer, student activities officer, York Sport president, and community and wellbeing officer. Secondly, we have the part-time officers, who are student volunteers who take up these roles alongside their studies. And these are either leading liberation campaigns or running coordination committees. So RAG and volunteering run coordination committees and work closely with the student activities SAB. Then we have BAME Students Officer, Disabled, Students Officer Mature, LGBTQ, Women and Non-Binary, International, Working Class, and Environment and Ethics. And most of those are liberation officers who work on campaigns, work with the community and wellbeing SAB, and put forward ideas for making campus life better for the students they represent. Thirdly, we have non-officer roles, which are faculty reps. So there are 3 faculty reps who would represent the students on your course. And then we have in this selection 2 non-political roles, which are student trustees, of which there are 3 positions available, and the accountability and scrutiny chair. These 2 roles revolve more around governance than political campaigns. So if you were to run for these roles, you'd be putting forward a statement rather than a manifesto. All of these roles are on our website, and you can find out a role description for each of them. So the timeline of the election is pushed back a little bit this year. So we're starting in week 5. We have nominations opening in week 5 on the Monday until the end of week 6. Then this goes into development week. So everyone who's nominated then has a week to prepare for campaigning. During this week, which is week 7, you'll be able to go to workshops and develop your manifesto further so that you're ready to campaign in week 8. So campaigning starts on the 2nd of March, which is Tuesday of week 8, where you will begin online campaigning. This will follow through voting week, which is in at the end of week 8, so on Friday of week 8, voting will open and it will close on the Friday of week 9. So you'll have a whole week to campaign and gain those student votes. So what you need to nominate, it's really simple to nominate, and you'll need 4 key things. So that is your manifesto, which is your main part of your nomination. This should set out what you want to do in the role, what you're passionate about, and what you want to change. They're the best manifestos when they keep it simple. So you'll only have 500 words, so it's not a big essay, and it's best to start with 3 summary bullet points about what it is that students should vote for you, why should they vote for you. Alongside this, you'll also be able to put in a blurb, which is 100 characters, so it's very short, and it'll be something like your campaign slogan or just an introduction to who you are. Thirdly, you'll need a photo that will go up on the website when people want to vote for you. This needs to be an individual photo with a plain backdrop, or if you are running in a pair, which you can do for PTO roles, it'll be a photo of both of you, of which if you're not in the same part of the world, we can merge 2 photos for you. Then finally, you'll need to submit a couple of forms. First off, it's the eligibility form, so just a few declarations to make sure that you're eligible for the role. And then optionally, you can also fill out our diversity form, which allows us to monitor the range of candidates we have so that we can keep doing our widening participation work in following years. So campaigning can be a lot of fun, and this year it's all online, so there's less stress in terms of the physical commitments, because of course we're in national restrictions at the moment, and so that it's available to all wherever you are in the world, campaigning will only be online. This is another point that you don't, if you're not in York at the moment, that doesn't restrict you being a candidate because of this. So you can be back at your parents' house, you can be abroad, you can still be a candidate. Finally, you're fully supported throughout the process of elections, which mainly comes from myself and Nick. And so anything you need, we're here to help with. The main areas of support you'll have is that there'll be staff contacts as well as the elections team throughout YUSU who will be there to talk to about specific roles. So they will be the staff that if you were to win the position, you would work with on a day-to-day basis. So they're great people to get in contact with and run through your ideas for your manifesto, and they can let you know if some things are feasible or not, and they can answer any questions you have about role-specific things. So make use of those. Secondly, we've got the Candidate Hub, which will be up on our election site. This will give you information about workshops like this one. It'll have the recordings of all our workshops, And then also it's got guides about how to campaign, how to make your resources accessible, all kinds of useful information. So you can go there as your one-stop shop for any kind of information about being a candidate. And then finally, like I say, any other support you need, you just need to email us and we'll be there happy to help. So I'm going to pass over to Nick now, who's going to talk to you about the skills you can gain as a candidate.
Hello again. Are you going to have to flip my pages, Laura? Shall I tell you when I'm ready?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, cool. Right. So obviously it's quite a difficult time at the minute, job market wise. So I think we wanted to let you know and explore some of the benefits of both running and standing and becoming an officer rather. So doing the actual job. And I'll come to Effy and Maddi at the end to talk about the benefits of or the skills they've built in their roles. But I'll take you through a few points here as well. So next slide, Laura. Oh, it's a fancy slide. So yeah. Oh, are they all coming out at the same time? This is live. So obviously you'll all be running because you're massively activisty and passionate about making change, which is the first thing and the most important thing you need when you're thinking about running for an officer. But there are also loads of practical skills that you'll develop running and doing the job. So a key one in running for YUSU election is project planning. So the opportunity to develop your manifesto and mobilize your mates and other students around a campaign is a really good example when you come into job applications and job interviews around project planning. So plan well is a key point. You'll also have the opportunity to gain influencing skills. So standing in election is all about influencing and putting forward ideas for change and thinking about activism, stuff like that. So again, thinking about job applications, thinking about job interviews, everyone always asks about influencing skills. So it's a really good example to use there. Public speaking, which I know can be a bit scary and will be a wee bit different this year. You're going to have opportunities as you run to be a candidate to speak to students. It'll obviously be all online, which is a skill in itself. And it's obviously a skill that you really need to hone in the current climate. So it'd be a really good opportunity to develop those public speaking communication skills. And then in order to get elected, there's a bit of a need for you to engage with different students as well. So when employers or when you're talking in applications around being able to communicate with different groups of people, it'll be a really good example to use where you've tried to engage and communicate with different student groups during the election. And then finally, there'll be mainly ups in the election process. As Maddi and Effy will testify to, it'll be a happy process in the main, but there will be challenges. So again, running for election is a really good way of being able to demonstrate and build in your capacity to overcome challenges. Again, something that you can talk about in job applications and interviews, etc. Next slide. Okay. So when you actually become officer, if you win, there are also lots of great skills that you will develop. And I'll just quickly unmute to make it a bit more interactive, Maddi and Effy here. I'll go through these as well. But what are the key things that you gained from being an officer? Maddi, you're currently still an officer, and Effy previously. What were the key skills you picked up?
Who wants to go first?
You go, Maddi, you're current.
I was actually just writing this down while you were talking, Nick, so I can read you my list.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think some things that I've definitely learned in being an officer, and I think it's not just about learning new skills, but also like learning to hone existing skills. So I put here, maybe some people wouldn't call it a skill, but vision. So what I mean there is like learning how to achieve your vision. So what are the steps you need to put in place from the start of an idea to the operational development phase to then achieving the outcome. Public speaking. So I don't really think anyone likes public speaking, but I definitely have got a lot more comfortable and confident doing it this year. I definitely am one of those people that does this, even though they don't want to. Advocacy as well. So I've definitely got better at learning from students' experience. So like listening, because as much as you've had one experience at university, like other people have had a completely different experience, and that might have been even in the same club or course as you. So like listening to people and using what they tell you to like formulate your ideas, complete your manifesto and your goals, and being flexible. So you might have a manifesto and then something might happen and you have to react to that situation and learn to adapt. So COVID's a great example. Like my manifesto had to be flexible this year, and I had to sort of think outside the box in terms of how I was going to do bits of it, but also what I was going to change up. Effy?
Yeah, brilliant.
Whereas Maddi hates public speaking, I thrive in public speaking, and I didn't used to. I think that it was something I really grew to love during the role, and like getting to interact with people in so many different ways as well, doing the welcome talks and then doing sort of online forums with people and hosting and chairing different meetings and committees, and like the ways in which you get to speak with loads of people in completely different ways that you haven't been exposed to before is something that's really, really good, and it's really helped me since leaving being a SAB. I think tone management as well, if that makes sense. It's a really weird one, but I think one of the most important things you get out of being a SAB is the ability to get like a seat at the table in some really, really different environments. So you can go and chat with the Vice Chancellor almost whenever you want to raise things with him, and you're also talking with the cleaning staff, and you're also talking with external people and stakeholders, and then people who are donating to the university, and the massively different networks across the university and higher education, and working with politicians and things like that, and being able to hone your tone. So going from one meeting where you're talking with a load of students about you know, what they're going to do in their sport meetings, to going to talk to the Vice Chancellor about how much the tuition is costing, like the ability to bounce between those two environments and still engage your audience is a skill that's like so valuable in the outside world, and definitely something that being a SAB really gave me. And I think it's something that I've taken, I'll sort of run with quite a lot. And also the networks as well that you get to meet as a SAB. When you're if you win and you become an officer, even if you're not a full-time officer and you're a part-time officer, you get introduced to loads of different people, loads of different other institutions, the local government in the city, people just across the country who do the same sort of campaigns work that you do. And those campaigns, not only do they become like really good friends, but also they're great contacts to then go into the world of work with after, and being able to learn how to network with those people is also really good.
Yeah, wow. I don't think there's anything that you didn't cover on, Mike. I mean, as you both mentioned, I think the opportunity, both part-time officers and SABs, to lead and influence change is a really key one. And I don't think there's many better jobs or first jobs that you can have to pick up those skills. And like you mentioned, Effy, the diverse relationship, just the sheer breadth of people that you get to chat to and work with as an officer at YUSU is pretty incredible. And I don't think you get that with many other first roles. And then project management, obviously you have to be flexible, like you said, Maddi, but I think it's a really good opportunity to plan projects and work with budgets and timelines and creating that kind of theory of change as well. So yeah, it's definitely big for that. And then multitasking is a massive one for both staff members at students' unions and officers, especially sabbatical officers, because you have so many different things to juggle. So that's different projects, different meetings, and then just obviously having to communicate with students and answer emails and social media stuff as well. So it's a real juggle fest, I would say. So multitasking is a big skill that you're going to develop. And then the final one is resilience. I think that, like I said, in the running for to be an officer, there is going to be ups and downs, but I think as an officer, you often have to overcome challenges, don't you, and negotiate conflict within the student union, within the kind of political bubble that you're in with the student union, but also with the university as well. So I think you're very resilient people when you come out of especially SAB roles, PTO roles as well. So yeah, so apply, because you're going to pick up loads of great skills. And shall I pass back to you, Laura, now?
Okay, thanks, Nick. So building on what Nick's just told us there, we do have some skills workshops going on for the next couple of weeks, where you can get an introduction to those skills that you can build as an officer or a representative. So little taster workshops. This can be even if you're not interested in running this year, if you're more interested in running for a different student representative role, such as in your college or your department, these can be really helpful. So student activism, leadership, professional communication, resilience, and project management. So you can check out our website for those. So now we are going to hear a bit more from Maddi and Effy. I'll come off this slide, guys, so that everyone can just see your lovely faces. And then Maddi and Effy are going to tell us a bit about their experience as officers, specifically about how they found being officers in as women, and then also about how they feel about the importance of representation of women and non-binary students. So here we go. So who wants to go first? Maddi, Effy?
Effy, I think you can start off, seeing as I started off last time.
I knew it would come back to haunt me. Oh, crikey, it's me. I think so. For anyone who doesn't know, when I first ran to be an officer, I was the only female candidate for any of the sabbatical officer roles. And I think it really highlighted the lack of diversity that we were experiencing in student politics. And it was something that my team, which was then 4 guys and me, who were absolutely wonderful, they were fantastic. And we're all still really, really close, which is another great thing about that sort of SAB relationship. But it really highlighted to us the importance of having women and non-binary candidates and officers as well, because I think one of the things that like we talk about a lot is you know, what happens when you win, if you win, but actually the candidacy itself, like you learn so much just being a candidate. And actually, even if you don't win, being able to get all these amazing skills and these opportunities is so important, and is something that if you don't run, you kind of miss out on. And so we were seeing, you know, all these opportunities open up for loads and loads of men, but no other women. And it was really quite sad to see that these opportunities were getting missed. And it was something that we worked on quite a lot as a team that first SAB year, was trying to promote sort of getting more women and non-binary people into these positions. And it obviously worked, because me and Maddi's team was 4 women and 1 guy. So it completely reversed, which was very nice to see. But I think my own experience, the first year was certainly very, very interesting. And I think it really shone a light on, and something that Maddi talked about earlier, is about learning from other people's lived experiences, in that a lot of the guys hadn't had anywhere near the same university experience that I had, despite the fact that most of us came from quite similar backgrounds. And that sort of that difference in your own experience at university, and particularly as a wellbeing officer, your experience of university wellbeing, it can really, really differ depending on your gender identity. And that was something I think we kind of took for granted quite a bit at the start. And so being able to learn from that and sort of push through and introduce a lot of campaigns that were really going to benefit a lot of people was really, really interesting. I think one of the ones that was really, really good was seeing the work that was being done to tackle period poverty on campus. And so people who menstruate were able to get access to a load more support services they didn't have before. And a lot of that was because we were there trying to really, really champion the voices of those people that we felt were currently underrepresented in the team, and reaching out to the officers, the part-time officers, and utilising their experience, because we had amazing sets of part-time officers for both of the years I was a SAB, who were always willing to learn their experiences. And that was really, really beneficial to like help change our perceptions. I think, again, being the only woman, they were like, oh, we'll ask you, you're the girl. And actually, again, my own experience was also very limited to just me and my uni time. So being able to consult and get a really diverse array of experiences of what it means to be a woman or a non-binary person at university is really vital. And that's why our next team with Maddi was so great, because we had 4 women who came from completely different backgrounds, who had completely different university experiences in completely different colleges, which was lovely to see. But yeah, Maddi, come in here. Tell us about how wonderful our team was.
Our team was wonderful. All teams are wonderful in their own ways. Yeah, so it was really great to be part of a team that was for women, and then Ollie as well. And I think part of the reason why I probably decided, actually, I don't want to make Effy embarrassed, but part of the reason I ran actually in my first year was because I saw Effy in her team with the 4 boys, and I thought that it should, you know, it'd be good to have more female and non-binary representation up there, sort of at the top table, if you like. I think, so speaking from like a sport experience, sport's really interesting. The last 2 years, all the candidates that have run have been female or non-binary. There haven't been any male identifying students that ran, but before that it was a completely male election, and I think that's interesting in itself. I think that's probably a sign that things are sort of changing in sport, and the young generation coming through in sport sort of wanting to have more of gender parity within representation. It's definitely something that, you know, lots of sporting bodies are discussing, debating at the minute. Women's football is a great example in the last 2 years, how much that's come on with the investment in their top league. But I think it's something that maybe I only realised this year, in my second year as a SAB, when I'm going to these meetings online. A lot of them are on Zoom, which actually weirdly means that we normally get more turnout when it's like a national type meeting, because people don't have to travel from like Scotland to London to go to this meeting. So there's more people online. And the older you get with people involved in sport, the more higher up you're going, the less women there are, the less non-binary people there are, and it is a heavily male-dominated field. And it's definitely something that I started to notice this year, and it makes me feel hopeful. Actually, when I talk to like sabbatical officers that are all sort of like early 20s, people, it's much more representative, and that makes me feel hopeful, because I hope that moving forward, if we keep encouraging people, you know, from a diverse range of backgrounds to run, that when we're that age, when we're in those senior positions, it will be much more representative of society as a whole. Oh, we've created a silence.
Wonderful. Thanks, Maddi and Effy. Is there anything before we finish that you wanted to, any tips or advice for any women or non-binary students who are thinking about running?
Oh, I've got one. I'll jump in now, and Maddi can go and then jump back. But it was something that I was really reminded of the first time I ran, again as the only female candidate, was there's a lot of ways to celebrate your diversity in terms of the candidate pool without relying on it as your only selling point. Like, if you're going to run as an officer, you will undoubtedly have loads and loads of knowledge and experience that you might not think about at first, but, you know, to even put yourself forward, you're obviously going to have a lot of those sort of skills innate within you. But a thing that often trips people up is entirely relying on their on that identity and missing out their actual policies. You know, a manifesto is there to show what you're going to change for the whole student population, or for the whole population that you represent as a part-time officer. And you've got to have a lot of policies that are really going to make a difference, or, you know, it doesn't need to be a huge difference. We're not talking about, you know, demolishing Derwent and starting again, but it's something that's going to allow people to really see that you can make a change. And if you just rely on one facet of your personality, people often don't see that. So make sure, if you're writing your manifesto or you're trying to campaign to people, who are trying to get people to understand your lived experience, that you're communicating it in a way that's a sort of authentic representation, not just saying, you know, I'm a female or non-binary candidate, vote for me because of that. You have so many other amazing qualities that people can vote for you on as well. Make sure you're selling that side of yourself alongside those sort of diversity points to really like engage people as much as you can.
Yeah, I think just echoing that, I think talk to people. If you have an idea and you're not sure about how it works in practice, reach out. Like, I remember when I was first running, I messaged a few different club presidents. I didn't know them, and they agreed to meet with me so I could talk about this policy idea I had. And I think that gives you so much substance to why you're running, because you can explain things, and you can explain them from other people's perspectives, not just your perspective. We talked a lot today about lived experience, and I think the more you can listen to people and represent as many people's lived experience as possible, the better. I think another thing that I would say make sure that your materials for your campaign are accessible. I think it's so easy for us to sort of throw around accessibility and like sort of buzzwords like that, but it really makes a difference if you sort of reach out to those people that have accessibility needs and requirements in a simpler thing as putting image descriptions. You know, that can really make such a difference to actually countless students, because it's more people than you think. So definitely make sure your campaigns are accessible.
Another one from me. I'm getting so many memories. Don't be afraid to ask people who know more than you about something. Nobody is expecting you to be an expert on being the sports president, being the academic officer, being the disabled students. No one is expecting you to be an expert when you're running. You would do yourself a disservice if you try to pretend you were. But make sure when you're writing your manifesto, you're coming up with ideas, you are consulting people on if they are possible, because the last thing you want to do is create a manifesto that is completely impossible, get elected on that manifesto, and then be held to things you can't do. It's, you know, one of the first things that I did when I first ran was I went with one of the candidates for president, and we went and spoke to the university finance team to ask them how it worked, because we had no idea how anything to do with the funding worked. And so we went and we asked questions, and so when we were writing our manifesto, we knew, right, if we're going to cut this cost or we're going to try and do this thing, is that going to be possible? What's the knock-on effect? And it meant that when we were campaigning and explaining our policies to people, people understood that we actually knew more about what we were doing, rather than just saying, I plan to take this thing down, and people go, how? And you're, I don't know. It puts you in a lot stronger position. But also the staff at YUSU are really, really nice, and they know a lot of stuff, and it's, you can talk to them. I don't know how it's working in terms of getting sort of linked staff for candidates for each role this year, but one of the things I found completely invaluable was going and speaking to some of the senior managers at YUSU with my manifesto when I sort of had it just before I finalized it, and saying, right, this is what I want to do as community and wellbeing officer. I've spoken with the existing officer, I've spoken with a lot of the part-time officers, I've spoken with my friends, I've spoken with other candidates for different things. Do you think this is possible? Please be brutal. And she dismantled a couple of my points, which is like, this is silly, but this is fantastic, and this is brilliant, and this is going to be a real change maker if you can get it done. And firstly, it was a massive ego boost. It was wonderful to feel like I was actually like getting on the right track. But also you can learn from their experience in a way that you just can't do if you're not consulting those people. So, you know, drop people an email, see if they're free, and also befriend the other candidates. They are not your enemies. They are lovely, lovely people. Me and Maddi drove around doing campaigning together for a bit. I went around with a load of other officers for different roles, and it was just really nice. And you make a lot of friends, and, you know.
Oh no. Right, I'll finish our sentence.
Effy, you back?
Yeah, I'm back, don't worry.
We lost you.
I know, my internet's terrible.
What I was going to say is, in support of you, that definitely sense check and talk to people who might have answers and be able to give you more information on stuff, because especially in this weird COVID situation, the last thing you want is a manifesto you're going to be held accountable to, that you can't deliver or you don't know where to start with. And you know, staff and existing officers are here to help you do that. Like, we're a resource until you sort of get in position. So use us, because we're more than happy to help.
Absolutely, yes. As I was saying earlier, we will be releasing a list of key contacts for those staff that you can get in touch with. But as you've just heard, Maddi is available as a SAB to talk to. And if there's anything that you want to ask but you don't know who to ask, just go to the elections@yusu.org email and we'll pass it on to the most relevant person. Thank you so much, Effy and Maddi, for those lived experiences and really great advice. And we're going to wrap things up now. So thank you everyone for watching. I hope it's inspired you to have a think about running. We've also got our recommend a friend form out this week. So if you see on social media, there'll be links there. So if anyone that you think would be great, any women and non-binary fellow students who you think would be wonderful at the role, you can recommend them, and then we will get in touch to give them more information. So thank you everyone for watching, and good luck if you decide to run.